You're listening to Truth to Power Live with Dumisani Washington. Truth to Power Live, Dumisani Washington. I'm your host, Dumisani Washington. Glad to be with you here on this Sunday. What is this? November the 24th. I think this is the last Sunday in November. Happy early Thanksgiving to everyone. Great to be with you here today on this podcast / radio station, on and off. Talk about that some more again. On the Truth to Power Live show, we talk about Bible, music, politics, culture, the Black American community, current events, geopolitics, Israel, Africa, marriage, family, education, and everything in between. For those of you who are already aware, I want to thank you again for your prayers. We traveled a week ago today. We did Truth to Power Live. This is episode 23. Episode 22 was actually live from Washington Dulles Airport at the United Club there. Got those little frequent flyer miles. It's funny. And I thought I was going to have to pay, it's like a $50 charge to use the actual club, unless it's an overseas flight, which I forgot about that, right? So I walked in and, okay, how much is it again? It's X. So all right, trying to get my little nickels and dimes together. And they said, oh, well, you're going to, Poland via, Frankfurt, Germany. It's free for you. It's like, cool. All right. So I set up in the corner, got a little cubicle, was able to do the show, wasn't able to do all the other content stuff we wanted to do afterwards, but had a great time with you. And then about a half hour after that show, got on the plane, flew to Frankfurt, Germany, which was our connecting to Krakow, Poland, where we attended the European Jewish Association's annual delegation to Auschwitz. We actually Auschwitz-Birkenau. We went to what they call Auschwitz 1 and 2. So was there when that is part of the theme for today. I want to actually touch on that and a couple other things that are related as well. Again, great to be with you. Again, I do appreciate your prayers and everything. I'm kind of multitasking here because I was sending something else. I was trying to move something else on this other little screen there, and kind of I might not multitask too much. But again, I'll try to get it in if I can. So the primary thing now, there are a lot of things that are happening and unfolding even as we were doing show prep and everything. But of course, a couple of days ago, we learned that a Chabad rabbi in the UAE in Abu Dhabi was abducted and then later on killed. And it appears that the Iranian regime, their royal guard, the IRGC, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps, and they seem to be some Uzbekistan members that were recruited, were the ones who did the deed. Prayers for the rabbi and his family. We have a lot of Chabad rabbi friends and family, so praying for all of you, Chabad, who are mourning the loss of the rabbi who passed away. And I wasn't even prepared. It just happened here. So forgive me if I'm not saying his name at this very moment. I have it on my other note here that we were trying to jot down. Rabbi Zvi Kogan, Chabad rabbi in Abu Dhabi. I'll say something about that again as we get back to this, because other than the tragedy itself, the Iran connection, if there's any type of theme for today, including me sharing with you a little bit of our trip to Auschwitz, would be the Islamic Republic of Iran. As a matter of fact, you can go to our website, ttplive.com, and you will see on there the links for the different websites. Again, for our YouTube page, which is brand new with all of 38 subscribers, Rumble, I don't know how many, maybe 2 or 3. Go on, like on those pages, right? You whether you're watching this on Rumble or YouTube or not, go to there for me. Go to the ttplive.com website. Scroll down, you'll see the Rumble link. You'll see the YouTube link. And there's one other link, I think even the X page, right? So we're streaming on different platforms right now. I'm on my personal X, we're on Instagram as well. I think the Instagram link may be on there as well. So check that out for me. Do that on there and share that with me. Share that for me. We had at Auschwitz, we made some comments. The reason I mentioned my Substack, other than that, about the show, you can click on the Substack for TTP Live on the website ttplive.com, and you can access that. I'm gonna have you send me some things. I'm gonna ask you a couple of questions as we get towards the end of this. But I posted on there a link to my comments. I was honored not just to be the guest of the European Jewish Association, to fly to Poland and participate in the delegation to Auschwitz, which I have some video, a little B-roll, some stuff to share with you from there, so you can kind of see a little bit of it. There's many more pictures that were taken. I took some myself, and I want to share some with you here. But also, I shared the speech. So I was supposed to speak 7 minutes. I want to speak in 20. Shout out to Ruth out there again, Wasserman Landy. Sorry about that. But we spoke and we touched on a couple of themes. One of those was Islamic terrorism. Let me say the end and at the beginning. Now I'm talking about in terms of the West, now the United States. You and I are being very much deceived where media is concerned. I want to say what I mean by that, because there's so much that's going on. And I'm challenging anyone to let me know if you see it. One of the most important issues in terms of news items and national security pieces where the United States is concerned throughout the West, but just dealing with the US for a moment, is the issue of Islamist terrorism, propaganda, funding on our campuses. It is a huge epidemic. It is what is driving much of the Jew hatred, Israel hatred, and connected to the America hatred, which comes from the leftist communist thing. It is, but it's stealth in large part because people either actively or passively are not telling you about it. What I mean by people is basically three categories. Number one, mainstream media, ABC, MSNBC, CBS, and for the most part, they're not going to talk about the Muslim Brotherhood. They're not going to talk about CARE. They're going to talk about Hamas, Hezbollah. They're not going to talk about the Islamic Republic of Iran and its networks in terms of the disinformation, not just its kinetic wars against Israel and it being the number one state sponsor of terrorism, but we're talking about the disinformation that's on our campuses. The stuff that's called critical ethnic studies that came out of California, which is a bunch of anti-Zionist drivel that they don't talk about. The student groups that are supposed to be pro-Palestinian, but they're actually pro-Hamas, that have direct and indirect ties to terrorist organizations. Mainstream media doesn't talk about it. Obviously, the leftists don't talk about it at all because it's fine with them, right? But even the independent journalists, the Tucker Carlsons, the Glenn Greenwalds, right? I don't care which side they are. No one discusses this. Virtually no one discusses this. And then the podcasters. Now, I'm talking about the podcasters or the other personalities, and I'm lumping into that everyone from the Patrick Ben-Davids to the Candace Owens. I mean, I'm talking about now, if it's legit, those people with millions of different followers, right? Right-leaning, left-leaning. Daily Wire. Again, I'm not attacking. I'm making a statement, and you can, somebody please back me up or prove me wrong. And what I mean by that, literally, go to my ttplive.com, or go to my Substack, which is Dumisani Washington at substack.com, right? Or ttplive.com. You'll see the link to the Substack. And I'm challenging everyone to challenge me. If you know of any mainstream media outlets, left outlets, you're not going to find it anyway, but still, if you see it, or any of the other ones I mentioned, the huge names, right, that are, I'm talking about whether it's the Dave Rubins, the Daily Wires, the Ben Shapiro's, was the Glenn Greenwalds on the left, and or the obviously the Tucker Carlsons, the Candace Owens, I'm saying that what happens on the level of disinformation, the billions of dollars on our billions from Qatar, from China, which also helps fund the Palestinian terrorism against Israel. I'm talking about here in the United States of America, it on our campuses, it affecting our media, but it doesn't get discussed at all. Someone said the free press. I don't know, has the free press been talking about it? If they have, this is what I need. I haven't seen it. If anyone, free press, I guess, is Bari Weiss. Anyone, and I have seen Bari Weiss's, I've seen, like, she has my girl, Ayan Hershey Ali, I've seen some pieces from her. Right. If you can show me. Right? Show me. I've seen some on the free press, a few others, but I'm talking about on the level of national security threat that it actually is. Okay, I'll give you what I mean. If anyone was reporting on all the Hamas encampments that were happening since post-October 7th and continuing now, and all the disruptions on campus and all the violence against Jewish students and pro-Israel students, all that, if anybody was reporting on that, and some people were, because it was more of it was kind of in your face type of thing. What we didn't see, and so I talked about this before in another article, was someone talking about where it's coming from. Okay, I'm coming to the Auschwitz part of it, but Bondi, is it what's the last name of the young lady? Pam Bondi, is that the one who's being considered to be the attorney general? Trump went from Gates to Angela Bondi. I might be saying her last name, her first name wrong. My apologies, Miss Bondi, if I'm saying your last name wrong, because your first name wrong. I was planning on saying this, but I saw a tweet in which she was on a newscast and she was talking about they were talking about anti-Semitism on the campus. He said, all these students, especially if they have foreign visas, if they're the whole Intifada and they're disrupting and they're threatening. Basically, she was talking about removing them from campus and moving them out of the country. And people say, "Oh, what about free speech and everything?" And I saw that debate. I'm not weighing in on that debate right now. What I did tweet quote in there to the attorney, possibly future attorney general, I don't know her, was that, with all due respect, it's not the student groups, it's the terrorist organizations that are tied to the student groups. It's the money. I told the attorney general, maybe possibly attorney general, with all due respect, don't go after the Students for Justice in Palestine and Muslim Student Association themselves. Go after who's connected to them. We have all the receipts for decades now, right? So there are terrorists, the Palestine Liberation Organization, the PFLP, the Popular Liberation Front for Palestine. I hope I'm saying it right. PFLP, Popular Liberation Front for Palestine, is a State Department recognized terrorist organization. It's just one, as is Hamas, right? I'm just using an example. The PFLP's name or acronym comes up many times when you are doing searches for who these student groups are connected to, meaning these student groups are connected to terrorist organizations. All due respect to whoever the incoming AG is, I would submit that the DOJ should go after the terrorist networks and the money that's actually fueling what's going on the campuses. And that's my point. This doesn't really get discussed. And I'm not saying that because either me or this show or the Institute for Black Solidarity with Israel, for whom I serve as CEO, are some smart. Other people are saying this, right? We've been saying it much longer than we have, right? Shout out to Amcha Initiative with my friend Tammy Rossman Benjamin. Shout out to Charles Jacobs, who's been doing this thing for decades, right? They've been talking about these types of things for a good minute. It doesn't get discussed anywhere, hardly anywhere in the media. And this is doing us a great disservice because it's only getting worse. It's much of what's fueling the anti-Semitism and even the America hatred that continues to come. So I want to start off by saying that. And let's go here to this. I prepared for you. We tried to prepare for you just a little, it's a 2-minute kind of snippet on what it was at the Auschwitz-Birkenau event that I had the honor of going to. I want you to check this out. I hope I have it all loaded up for you. Let's see if we can do this. few months ago, I was on the phone with an Israeli friend. He had a friend with him who's one of the captains of the guards in the Galilee region. Pastor Dumisani, thank you all for the work that you're doing. We know that Hashem has us. This may be the great battle that the prophet spoke of. And he says then to me, Rabbi, some of us may have to die. Here he is encouraging me as a Christian supporter of Israel. And he's speaking of the God of Israel and how we're going to be victorious. And what he was saying, I'm willing to lay down my life to defend Eretz Israel. That has nothing to do with whether or not God is the Shomer Israel. As a soldier, he was saying to me, my job is to fight, and fight I will. If I have to die, we will live. Yes, we stand with you. You inspire us. Zionism has meant to the Black community for centuries something that means rebirth, that means moving forward, that means building from the ashes. And no less now, you inspire us. We stand with you. Know that it is real. Know that it is genuine. And thank you so much for allowing me to be with you here on tonight. I was honored to give the keynote address at the night. So that night, the dinner that I was speaking at was the annual, it was the annual dinner before the delegation. So that was on a Monday night. And then on Tuesday, we went to Auschwitz and Birkenau, and you saw the pictures that were there. And there was a theme. Part of the theme was about Iran. You saw the last clip of it about talking to an Israeli IDF captain who's stationed in the Galilee. This was months ago, even before Lebanon officially was in play in the sense of the IDF going and having to fight there. And so we were able to share a few comments there on that Monday night. Like I said, I missed my other flight, but got there right in time. So I forgot to put the disclaimer on there. I'm wearing just a t-shirt and jacket because that's how I flew there. I was supposed to be dressed a little bit nicer than that, but I wasn't able to get up to the room and change. I had to my Uber gets to the hotel where the event is, and I put my bags behind the front desk and couldn't even check in. Had to go inside the banquet, got a little something to eat, and boom, I'm up talking. So that was why. But again, shout out to EJA, European Jewish Association, again for inviting us. So it was surreal. I've been to Yad Vashem, the Holocaust Museum in Jerusalem, multiple times, and much of going through Auschwitz and Birkenau resembled that because it's the same. It's that story that was happening in Europe again. So they're talking about it. We're actually in Poland, obviously at the death camps, but it was a lot of those the same type of memorial there at Yad Vashem, just obviously just huge and cavernous and things in terms of its size. And there's a display that has the hair. They would take the Jewish women's hair and they would make quilts, or they would make bedspreads out of the hair. So they would save the hair. The Nazis were very efficient. They would use every part of the body for other things after the person was killed. And then you saw a picture of the talus. There was the seats, the prayer shawls, as oftentimes Christians call them. A whole table full of them. I'm sure it was just representative of the millions that they had. So sitting on the table, I'm watching those. So. And then shout out to Poland. I guess the government, they sent the police escorts or whatever like that, and they make sure that you can get from place to place. And it seems to be something that's readily embraced there as a memorial, even though I believe it was in Poland where the Jews, other than Germany itself, suffered the most in terms of deaths. Poles and Hungarians murdered in that place. It's right. Someone was saying there, Mr. Nimrod, how you doing this? Oh, I see some of the comments there from LinkedIn. Yes, Poles and Hungarians. One of the signs that you saw there, it was one of the disinformation Nazi folks talking about, yeah, you got to kill Poles and Russians and Jews and Gypsies, which are Egyptians, and these some of the kind of the traveling, the nomad type of thing, if you want to use that term. Yes, the Nazis had a long list, which is what is fascinating when you see people who are Arab, who are Black American, who are maybe sometimes Hispanic, cheering Nazi stuff, and they're going, "You guys are such idiots." Again, this is how you can tell, right? They the Heil Hitler, and Hitler was right and everything, and you'd be dead too. That's why we're talking about that's what's happening now. So the speech that I gave. So again, that was it. There's a little snippet of it. There's more video and then some other photos that we'll be receiving from EJA. Our team at Institute for Black Solidarity with Israel may make a broader one, a longer one, and then share that with you. As a matter of fact, a little commercial announcement there. Any of you that are tuned in right now or watching this on podcast, that you are a follower of the Institute for Black Solidarity with Israel, either our work physically or online or whatever, or especially if you are a donor, just in case we missed you, there's a special exclusive donor event on Thursday, December the 12th, at 8 p.m. It's online, that we'll be hosting for all of IPSI's donors and supporters, including the premium content subscribers of our Substack, Africa Israel Weekly. If that's you and you have not already received a special invitation from me, please contact us at ibsi.org. You can go ahead and email us for there, or info@ibsi-now.org, and let us know, because we're having a special event in a couple of weeks, about a couple of weeks after Thanksgiving. Yeah, about 2 weeks after Thanksgiving, we're going to have a special event for our donors and tell you some inside stuff. And we have a lot of stuff to share, but things we can't share openly right now. But for the donors, we can share it with you. So again, I want to let you know about that. That just hit me just now, right? So again, the death camps, we saw where the ovens were, where people were burned alive, and yes, it was it's a lot. So any hallowed ground like that. My daughter, or my oldest daughter, was at one of the slave plantations in South Carolina a few years ago, and went to the slave quarters and visiting towards some other places, and she just felt deep in her spirit both the yearning and the longing, the pain, and also the deep gratitude for the fact that ancestors went through that in order for the other generations to be free. And so this was like that. You're walking around. You're aware of the fact that many people suffered and died here, and they suffered and died because of who they were, not because of anything they had done. Jews, I told you, Gypsies, Poles. I mean, obviously those other numbers, not even really, I mean, proportionally, mostly Jews, millions of Jews killed. And not only that, we talked about it last week, Hitler then partners with the Grand Mufti of Jerusalem, because again, the Nazis, like anyone else who does a little bit of their homework, knows that the Jewish people are diaspora people. They didn't just live in Poland and Germany and in Austria and everything. They were in Yemen and Libya and Ethiopia. See, there was the goal to kill all of the Jews. This was not just the Jews in Europe. Isn't it amazing? The Jew haters in the Middle East tell them to go back to Poland, and make no mistake, when they say go back to quote unquote Poland, they mean Auschwitz. They're not just saying go back to Europe. And they know that these people originated from Levant, from the Middle East. And again, the same thing. The reason why Ethiopian Jews were called falasha is not a good term. It's a bad term. It means outsider. It means you're not from here, right? So this was the same thing. Ethiopian Jews were told by their Ethiopian hosts, we don't want, even though they've been there for millennia, we don't want you here, right? At some point, the nations, unfortunately, it's a cycle, remind the Jews in their midst, you're not welcome here. The most concerning part now is that we see this sentiment growing even in the United States, even in the midst of a tumultuous election. Donald Trump, whether people like him or not, the man has been probably one of the most pro-Israel presidents in the history of the United States relationship with Israel. And for those who don't agree, we have all the receipts. Oh, he's a foo-foo head. Man, I don't have time for that foolishness right there. I'm just talking about the fact that everything from the Golan Heights being recognized by Israel, we did all this already, right? We recognize it belonging to Israel, the embassy in Jerusalem, the cutting off of funding to UNRWA. That's back to the whole terrorism thing. The Islamic Republic of Iran was struggling. It was being strangulated because of the sanctions placed on it by the Trump administration. When the Biden administration came in, they opened the floodgates. One of the stats was some $200 billion over a period of time in sanctions relief and allowed oil sales and all those things. And what did the Islamic Republic of Iran do with that money? October 7th, Islamic Jihad, Hezbollah, Lebanon, they funded all of these things to the hilt to try to destroy the Jewish state of Israel and worldwide Jewry. So much of that was coming from the United States as well, right? So we have a moment, however, in which this Israel issue is being discussed in all corners and increasingly on the right, almost as much as the left, but in derogatory, bad, negative, foolish, stupid terms, meaning people not knowing. You have jihadists saying that Israel is committing genocide against Lebanon and Gaza. Lie. You have Arab Muslim lawmakers and leaders like the mayor of Dearborn, Michigan, we talked about last week, accusing Israel of genocide in Gaza and Lebanon. It's still a lie. And then you have people on the right, like the Tucker Carlsons or like the Candace Owens, and like the Israel's committing genocide. All those, I don't care whose mouth it's coming from. It's a lie. There's no genocide happening in Gaza or in Lebanon. There's a war against Israel and Hamas in Gaza, Israel and Hezbollah in Lebanon. And unfortunately for everyone involved, those cowardly terrorist groups funded by Iran are embedded in civilian populations. That's what's actually going on. And that's my point earlier. Not many are telling you that. There are some, not many. The story continues to simply be Israel marching into Gaza, slaughtering Gazans, marching into Lebanon, slaughtering Lebanese. And that story, again, like I said before, is gaining traction. It's still a lie. You know what? You know what a lie is that gains traction? A lie with traction. It's still a lie, right? These are lies. They are anti-Semitic lies. They're anti-Israel lies. And just like the ICC, lie. Once again, we arrest warrants for Bibi Netanyahu and for the military minister. We're gonna for what? For defending themselves against Iran. Right. So it's okay. So even if you thought that something happened, where's the arrest warrant for the Ayatollah? Where's the arrest warrant for the few Hamas leaders that are still alive? Where's the arrest warrant for whoever's arrest warrant for who's over Hezbollah right now? Because Israel's taking these people out like they need to be. So yep. In the speech that I shared, we talked about the Islamic Republic of Iran, among other things. And our time is going to go by really quickly. I want to share two things. You saw some of the speech. I gave you a little bit of it in the clip there. It wasn't that part of it. It was just towards the end about us being inspired, people being inspired by both Zionism, by Israel, its courage, its bravery, what the Israelis are going through. As of last week, I don't know what the number is, but as of last week, some 799 IDF soldiers had fallen from October the 7th of 2023 until about last week. I don't know what the number is now. I know a few IDF were killed in Lebanon, maybe 2 or 3, if I'm not mistaken, the other day. So I'm pretty sure that number is over 800 now. Over 800 of these young soldiers have given their lives, like Captain Gabriel is willing to give his life, knowing that God is still the Shomer Israel. So it's quite amazing what's happening here. Israel is fighting an existential war, and in the West, Jew hatred is rising, right? But there's no feelings towards the terrorists that actually are fighting the wars, as if they don't exist. And that's the thing. That's without giving all the different names and stuff like that. What you want to do, ladies and gentlemen, is this. If they are beginning to talk about Israel, war in Lebanon, war in God, I just want you to put your thinking caps on. Number one, or to say, ask yourself a few questions. Number one, why are they discussing this? Is it just because it's a hot topic? Do they usually discuss geopolitical conflicts, right? And then And as you're doing that, see the context in which you're discussing it. If they do their little report or their little conversation, and I don't care who they are, and it begins, the middle and the end is what Israel is. Israel's killing children. Israel, first of all, again, that's not true. Israel's not just going and killing children. Are civilians dying in these conflicts? Unfortunately, yes. But in terms of the number, the ratio, which we talked about before, no army on the planet and in history has a better civilian to combatant ratio, especially when you're fighting in these guerrilla warfare type of situations. But having said that, even if they wanted to come at Israel for the casualties in the war, do they ever mention the people who started the war or who they're fighting against? See, when they couch it in terms of Israel fighting against 10-year-old Palestinians, 10-year-old Lebanese, they're going to kill. That's a clear indication about the level of lying. It's terrorist disinformation and propaganda, because Israel is fighting whether it's the armies there in Lebanon or the terrorists, that's who they're fighting. If they don't even mention who they're fighting, if they don't even give a word about what the actual fight is, that's a clear indication to you whether they're doing it ignorantly or whether they're doing it purposefully. They are pushing a narrative, and that narrative is actually one of the things that's fomenting more and more of the fraying in our society. This is part of what's going on. So the Iran piece was part of the theme of my comments. And again, you can see the comments. You can see it on my X page. But if you go to my Substack, you can ttplive.com, click on Join Dumisani Substack. You just click on the Substack, and then the last entry on there was the actual 20-minute speech that's on there, the keynote address that I gave. But I want to share with you one of the things that I did share in my comments there, and that's this piece by Algeminer. Do this here. Yep. It's 2014, and it's entitled Rwanda. Rwandan genocide scholars urge Jews to recognize Iran threat as similar to Nazi regime. When I said the Third Reich of today, again, this was not just something that I just thought of. The Rwandans said this 10 years ago, and I quote from the article, Dr. Charles Asher Small, he's over ISGAP, the Institute for the Study of Global Anti-Semitism and Policy. Dr. Small, I said it wrong the last time I was in Poland. Please forgive me for that. He said that the Rwandans were very much concerned about the future of Israel and the dehumanization by radical Islamists and the Iranian regime against the Jewish people, and wanted to know why the American Jewish community were not as alarmed as they were. Again, this was April 2014. The Rwandans are watching and listening to what Iran is doing. Again, what media doesn't really talk about, and saying they are the Nazis. This is what the Rwandans are saying. Last part, the Rwandan group implored me to tell the Jewish community, its leaders, intellectuals, professionals, and policymakers that the Iranians were using the same tactics against Jews as the Tutsis had suffered in Rwanda, which is similar to the Jews during the Holocaust, he said. Again, so now the Rwandans who suffered a genocide, are listening to, this was 10 years ago, the rhetoric and watching the global terrorism actions of the Islamic Republic of Iran, who just straight up says death to America, death to Israel, and the influence that they're having. And not only were the Rwandans alarmed, they're actually saying they wanted to know why. They said the Jews of the West, but we can know the expanded Jews and non-Jews. Why are the folks in the West not alarmed by what Iran is doing? Again, this was 10 years ago. Remember, if you remember nothing else from this, remember that Hamas is a proxy of the Islamic Republic of Iran, and Hamas are the ones who did October 7th, who are still fighting now. And October the 8th is when Hezbollah even more so starts attacking Israel from the north. So from the north and the south, Israel, by some close to 100 and something thousand, maybe 200,000 people displaced internally because of the fighting coming from their borders on the north and the south. Iran is the quarterback for that team. Iran is the captain. Iran is the one calling all those plays, but it never gets discussed. The Rwandans 10 years ago said, we think that the West, both the Jewish community and the non-Jewish community, needs to be paying more attention to what Iran is doing, and they likened it to the Nazis of World War II. They are doing in terms of disinformation and all the Joseph Goebbels, that he said, this is Iran. That 10 years ago, the Rwandans said, that the Islamic Republic of Iran, not the Iranian people, no, the Islamic Republic of Iran, the Ayatollah regime, are the Nazis of today. They are the Third Reich of today. That's what some of my comments were at that time. We shared that on that night. And again, and respectfully, right here, I'm a guest as part of the whole Auschwitz delegation. And we're reflecting and we're looking now and we're talking about different things. Shout out to Rabbi Margolin again. He's one of the leaders. I mean, he may be the founding rabbi of the European Jewish Association. If he's not, y'all please forgive me. I know he's been a key figure in the organization. And we were talking about, we had a late night talk before I flew out the next morning. What's going on in Europe? And they are convinced, and I agree with them, that most other Westerners, most Americans are not aware of how bad it is in the UK, how bad it is in France, how bad it is in the Netherlands. I mean, we see the flashpoints, like people being attacked and pause. I get this question, well, you're a Black American. Why do you care about that? Okay, first of all, that's why I wrote my book, Zionism in the Black Church. You'd have to get it and read it. Zionism in the Black Church, ibsi.org. But beyond all these connections in terms of Zionism, Israel, and the Black community, if you could wrap your brain around the fact that what we're dealing with is another pre-World War II Holocaust situation, not Holocaust, the Jewish people have Israel now. This is the biggest difference between then and now is that there's an Israel. There was no Israel during the Holocaust, which is one of the reasons why 6 million plus Jews died. Now, 6 million Jews perished in the Shoah, what our Jewish brothers and sisters call the Shoah, the burning, right? What we call the Holocaust. Was it between 50 to 60 million people died by the end of the Second World War, which means that tens of millions of non-Jews also perished because the Nazis wanted to kill all the Jews on the planet and take over the world. Those Nazis today are Islamic Republic of Iran. They want to establish a global caliphate. They want to start by wiping out Israel. They want to next go to the United States of America. And oh, by the way, these are Shia Muslims who hate the Arab. They hate Saudi Arabia, UAE, Morocco. They got no love for, right? They want to burn it all down to the ground. So here we are again in this very, very similar situation. So the other part that I did talk about last week, to a certain degree, we kind of had to stop. I shared with you an article that I wrote now a couple weeks ago, I think, for Institute for Black Solidarity with Israel, that was about the Iranian regime's focus on the Black American community, Black and African, but especially the Black American community. And they're doubling down on that. If you haven't read it before, I encourage you. I'm not going to go through all of it here now, but you can check it out. That Substack is ibsi.substack.com. Or you can go to ibsi.org, click on Africa Israel Weekly is the name of the Substack. Please click on that, subscribe, and shout out to all those. You can do a premium subscription. You can do a free subscription. Just know that your premium subscription goes to the nonprofit, which is the IBS, Institute for Black Solidarity with Israel. I mentioned in that piece something about Louis Farrakhan. And I was supposed to actually touch on it last week, which I never really got to. However, my son Joshua is the executive director of the Institute for Black Solidarity with Israel. And IPSI has a forum on Israel, Africa, and Black America every Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern. You can tune into that online as well. And I'm going to give you a clip of it because Joshua actually picks up from the piece I wrote. I didn't tell him to do this. I don't give them direct. We have broader discussions about implementations of different things, but I mean, the senior staff, which I'm a part of, it's more and more run by the younger folks. They're doing their thing, right? And I'm very thankful to God for them. Joshua covered something in the forum last week. It's usually co-hosted with him and Olga, my daughter-in-law, but she wasn't able to join him last time. Maybe on this Monday. You'll see them on tomorrow, the forum, 8 p.m. Eastern. Be there, be square. But check out what Joshua says about this same thing. How about this Iran thing here? Now the Louis Farrakhan piece to it. Let's see here.
Week, our CEO and founder, Pastor Dumisani Washington, he penned an article in our Substack, ibsi.substack.com. Africa Israel Weekly is the name of it. You see the QR code there. You can scan it. The article is called The Iranian Regime's Increased Focus on Black Americans. We talked about it last week. There's a video, one of the Iranian officials talking to them about the importance of subverting America using the Black American population. But I want to talk about a different aspect, and that is Farrakhan's visit to Iran in 2018. There's an article that was penned from our friend Charles Jacobs in 2018, so the same year that Farrakhan went to Iran, from Tablet Magazine. The article is called, "As Passover Nears, Let's Not Forget Farrakhan's Shameful Stance on Slavery." Finally, in March of 1996, Farrakhan was cornered at a news conference and asked about his stance on Sudanese slavery. Now, he was cornered by our friend Charles Jacob. As reported in the New York Times, Farrakhan grew emotional. "Where is proof?
If slavery exists, why don't you go as a member of the press and you look inside of the Sudan? And if you find it, then you come back and tell the American people what you have found."
And so the Baltimore Sun, they took up the challenge. He said the Baltimore Sun took up the challenge. They sent 2 reporters into Sudan where they bought 2 young African slave boys from an Arab middleman. The report ran as a series in the Sun and was nominated for a Pulitzer Prize. A few months later, Dateline NBC ran a feature story on Sudan that included footage of slaves, raids, and middlemen. Host Jane Pauley introduced the segment, the first national television coverage of slavery from on the ground in Sudan, by playing a video clip of Farrakhan's angry challenge. Leaders of the South Sudanese people's struggle for liberation were not amused. Years before they had sought out Farrakhan and asked for his help, they reasoned that he, more than any other African American, could help them stand against the Arab onslaught and free black slaves. In April of 1994, they met with him and got his promise that if he had to choose between his religion and his race, he would choose his race. He did not, and he does not. What everyone thinks about Farrakhan's role as a liberator of black people, it ends at the water's edge. In Africa, for over 20 years, Louis Farrakhan has sided with those who have murderously oppressed black people. In every African conflict that pits blacks against Muslims, Farrakhan has sided with the Muslims or remained silent, even when Muslims were murdering blacks, even when they enslaved blacks. Even today, when Africans are slaves having been captured, bought, and sold by Muslims in Sudan, Mauritania, Libya, Nigeria, Farrakhan remains mum.
That piece that Joshua covered in the forum last Monday was connected to the piece that I wrote about Iran's influence on the black community and black leaders, the Iranian regime, for a while. So I mentioned Louis Farrakhan. Joshua went on from there. He was quoting from another piece, this connection, that Charles Jacobs wrote back in 2018, because 2018 was, to our knowledge, publicly, the last time that Louis Farrakhan visited Iran. And in that visit, among other things, he helped and joined in the chants of death to Israel, death to America. He has a very close relationship with the Ayatollahs, who in turn are very involved in trying to deceive the black community and use them the same way. And I talk about this in the piece as well, to understand how and why the Ayatollahs would be concerned about black American and African leaders. You'd have to understand the disinformation of the Palestine Liberation Organization, founded in the 60s, that did the same thing. Yasser Arafat, was the chairman of the PLO starting in 1969, immediately reached out to the Eldridge Cleavers, the Angela Davises. He comes to civil rights leaders, especially the younger ones, and tries to convince them that what Israel is doing in the Middle East is what was happening by racists against black folks in the United States, which is why, one of the reasons why people believe that, because it's a lie that's been repeated for darn near 60 years. It wasn't true then. It's not true now. And I talked about this many, many times, how Eldridge Cleaver is one of those who got red-pilled. He was the Minister of Information for the Black Panthers. Again, you go to ibsi.org, go to videos, and you find the one that says Black Panther Eldridge Cleaver became a Zionist, and it'll give you, there's an article with it as well. You can get you can go to our Substack on the Institute for Black Solidarity with Israel. It's just one example of the lies being dispelled. But again, this has been going on since the 60s. So Louis Farrakhan actively deceived, preaches a lot of anti-Semitic garbage, a lot of anti-Zionist garbage, right? He's always stoking those flames. And although he's 90-something years old now, he has acolytes. I said to this day, I don't know if there's any direct connection, but Candace Owens has almost kind of adopted his mantle, right? She's like a young female Louis Farrakhan, the way she keeps coming at the Jewish people with no receipts, just talking out the side of her neck. So this is the same thing here. this goes with the disinformation. We're being lied to actively and passively, because just as Joshua kind of underscored there how Louis Farrakhan refused to call out slavery in the Middle East, in Africa, in Mauritania, in Sudan, now, of course, now in Nigeria with Boko Haram, because he's covering for those, particularly where Islam is concerned, covering for the Islamic jihadists. He's covering for Arab Muslim imperialism. Here he is, a black liberation guy who won't tell black folks how they are being enslaved by the Arab Muslim world. I want you to see this because Joshua referred to in his article that Charles Jacobs, who's the founder of the American Anti-Slavery Group, and we proudly work with him along with the African Jewish Alliance. There was a press conference held at Howard University in 1996, led by Charles Jacobs of the Anti-Slavery Group and several other African leaders who either themselves were slaves or who had suffered jihad. And they had some of their own personal things to say where Louis Farrakhan is concerned. I share this on my walls. Let me share this with you here now. These are the African leaders who had, this is 1996, Howard University. Check this one out.
Yes, I would like to add something to what Mr. Farrakhan said about this. And I think it's very unfortunate because he's a moral leader and he's leading an organization that is a religious organization, but also so-called a civil rights organization. At some time before the Million Man March, we sent him a fax asking him to help us come to the podium and speak about slavery because we thought the Million Man people there had the right to know about slavery. He just refused to even answer to our request to come and speak to the Million Man March. Now he's going to Sudan saying that there is no slavery. Did he really go to the places where we have slavery in Sudan? And probably when he goes to Mauritania, he's going to say there is no slavery there also. Let me tell you this. You don't need to investigate about slavery in Mauritania. You smell it. It's right there. When Samuel Carton went to Mauritania, he did not have, even right from Dakar, he got all the information he needed for documenting about slavery in Mauritania. When he went inside Mauritania, it was overwhelming. The situation is, in my view, that he's recruiting Muslims in his Nation of Islam. He's trying to show that in the Muslim society, everything is fine. It's everything brotherhood. Everything is wonderful. That's not true. I'm telling you this, in my country you have 99%, 99 Muslim. But we have Muslim killing Muslim, raping Muslim, torturing them. And this is the situation that is being hidden here in this country because you want everybody to be a Muslim. I'm a Muslim. I'm proud to be a Muslim. But we have to face one true reality today, that in Muslim societies, blacks are being enslaved, tortured. There are women who are Muslim, and sometimes in Sudan who are animists, are being raped. How can a Muslim can do that? To me, it's just unacceptable.
Do your own work and you will come to the conclusion that slavery does exist. And as I had said before, we really hope that we will have moved, from contesting slavery. In fact, I was very distressed, by the other comment of Minister Farrakhan that the people in the South are very, very, and I believe it was repeated 14 times or so, black. And the people in the north are, light skin, different, like him. That is really a kind of a message that, to us who are already, facing this heavy burden of, of enslavement, is a continued justification, that these people are really nobody and they are therefore enslavable. And I think it's important for you to do an independent research, independent work, and work with the abolitionist groups that have emerged in this country. And you will be convinced that there is a cause to fight for.
The last part of the last gentleman who spoke, I can tell you that he was talking about skin color, and that the comments that Louis Farrakhan had made was that the ones who are further in the south of Sudan are black, meaning dark, but the other ones are light, like him, like me, light skin. So the light skin, dark skin thing, what he was saying is that because they're dark skin, they are eligible for slavery. This is what he said. Farrakhan didn't make this up. Elijah Muhammad, I didn't come prepared to talk about today on another program. We have recordings of Elijah Muhammad talking about dirty Africans and how the women shouldn't be talking to Africa. There's a real strain of African hatred for as much as Nelson Malcolm X was a Pan-Africanist. What you have is a lot of that whole light skin, dark skin thing that runs very, very deep in the Nation of Islam. And what he was talking about there was that Louis Farrakhan was given a wink, nod. They're dark skinned, so forget them. He said what Farrakhan was saying. There's a reason why you don't see a lot of dark skin. But anyway, that's another conversation for another day. That's another one of those shade color types of things. What am I talking about? So how are you any different than the white racists who don't like black folk? You just like certain ones, right? Said the brown paper bag thing. Right? So he was implying that one of the reasons why, not even implying, saying basically Farrakhan was saying, yeah, well, they're dark. So whatever, right? But when you get championed as the black man who's concerned about the black folks and that's the game. And the connection where Iran is concerned is because he's buddies with the mullahs. The mullahs who keep reaching further into the black community for the purpose of destabilizing America. They're trying to destroy the country and try to use black leaders to do it. With everything from race grievance to hatred for Israel to hatred for white people. And Israel's not about white people. I mean, it's all kind of, but again, that's what they say. Israel, they're Israeli settlers and colonizers. That it's amazing. These Arab and Islamic imperialists who are imperialists and colonizers and slave holders, all of those things right now, not 100 years ago, right now, are accusing other people of doing what they're doing. And they have to use people of color, right? So the Louis Farrakhan kind of touts that line. He toes that line. He actually spins that little baton around. That's what that's about. That's what they were talking about. 1996, almost 30 years ago. We touched on, and I'll probably have to do a part 2 because the piece that I did for IPSI was a section of it, but there's probably a part 2 that we're going to have to do to give more links and give more information. As I told the delegation there in Poland, when we travel across the country or have these conversations, even remotely with black pastors and leaders, we unpack these conversations. We discuss these types of things. Yes, in the context of Israel. So those gentlemen that were on the video there from 30 years ago, Charles Jacobson is in that video as well. It's just edited so you don't see him at first because we just focus on the guys who are talking at that moment. They're the two gentlemen that are talking. One is from Mauritania, the other one is from Sudan. But there are Christians and Muslims that are on that panel. But black African Christians and Muslim. So the African Jewish Alliance, which I've talked about before, AfricanJewishAlliance.org, is an organization that was newly founded after October the 7th, when, again, the same Africans saw, not just those same Africans, other Africans saw what Hamas and the other jihadists did to the Israelis and others on that day. Everything from the Allah Akbar to the chopping off of heads and all. They said, we know what that is. We've experienced that. Nigeria experiences that every week. Sudan experiences that every week. So that's where the African Jewish Alliance came from. Part of the point that I was making in my speech there in Poland was that the West's general unwillingness to name those Nazis, to name the jihadists, whether they're wearing 2- and 3-piece suits in the West with nonprofit organizations, or whether they're shouting Allah Akbar and shooting women and children in Israel or in Sudan or Nigeria, it's the same mentality. But because the West has been so duped with the stupid DEI stuff and the stupid affirmative action stuff and the stupid stuff that has nothing to do with real life, all that stupid race baiting stuff and the fears of being called Islamophobe and all of that disinformation, it's all terrorist disinformation because it keeps people from having grown-up conversations, hence the billions of dollars going to our college campuses and nobody talking about where it's coming from and what it's actually fueling. That means I can wring my hands and tear my shirt and do all the weeping and gnashing of teeth about the Jew hatred on the college campuses. But if I'm not going to actually deal with where it's coming from, the real source, I'm not doing anything, which is why the other piece that we wrote last year, when those Ivy League schools, those presidents were actually in hearings in the Senate, in the Congress, we were saying that unfortunately, nothing's going to be done. This is a dog and pony show. Claudine Gay, Liz McGill, and I can't remember the last young lady. It was MIT, right? Harvard and Penn State. And that wasn't the only ones, but they were the representative ones because, there's other schools, Yale. I mean, all this anti-Jewish, anti-American, anti-Israel stuff and who's doing the professors, where the money's coming from, everything. So I sat there and they talked about, oh, yeah, do you condemn and blah, blah, blah. And it was a big, to do. But we were saying that unless you go after the money and the terrorist ties for these organizations on the campus, you're not really doing nothing. And a year later, what happened? Okay, question for the class. A year later, after those hearings, which was around October 2023, November 2023, something like that, December, sometime in the fall, are things better or worse? Are the college campus situations in the U.S. better or worse? Let me help you. They're worse. Kids enrolled in school in the fall and they were being protested then. They were actually going to their classes and getting their dorms, and you already had the Free Palestine, Hamas, and blah, blah, blah. This is already going on. They were being greeted that way. So, of course, it's worse. How did it get worse? The real issue never got dealt with. They don't care. Hamas don't care that you had a press conference and you did a congressional thing. What? Hamas, the PFLP, the terrorist organizations that are tied to these student groups, they want you to focus on the student groups. You're helping them. Why? Because you're making people think that these anti-Semitic protests on campus are organic, that somehow these kids just came up with it on their own. No, this is being fed. This is actually being stoked with money and influence from outside onto the campuses. They don't want you to see what's behind the curtain. They want you to just see what's going on the stage. So when you do that whole, we're going to expose the student for justice in Palestine. We're going to expose, this student did these things, this student does that. Whatever happens, nothing happens to them. Why? Because even if something did happen to the student, like they're expelled for doing something, somebody's going to take their place. Does the SJP still have its charter? Can they still organize? You've done nothing. You've done absolutely nothing. You've actually helped the other side because you made the kids a martyr. And so you have folks even on the right, oh, free speech. Free speech. They're not even telling people that the kids are being accosted, that they're being attacked. That's not free speech. You don't get to get up and just start yelling in somebody's face or attacking them or hitting them or ripping down mezuzahs from their door. That's not free speech. But they're not telling them that part. On the left and the right, they're not telling them everything that's going on. They're just saying that they're trying to shut down free speech. People have the right. Yes, people have the right to say even nasty stuff, racist stuff, anti-Semitic stuff. Absolutely. They don't have the right to threaten, we want to kill the Zionist. Intifada, to globalize the Intifada, while they are actually connected to the terrorist organizations that are globalizing the Intifada. It doesn't work that way. So and until we deal with it in that way, I said this already before, Mr. President, President-elect Donald Trump, again, I don't know you. There needs to be a task force. There needs to be a real dismantling of the networks that are actually fueling all of this. Everything else is whistling Dixie, Mr. President. I'm just saying, unless there's going after the money and the networks that are actually fueling all of what's going on our campuses, unless it starts there. Now, that's not going to be a panacea, but unless it starts there, nothing else matters. Nothing else matters. So I just wanted to say that. All right. So I'm sure I ran out of time. because I think I was supposed to do one other thing. Yeah, and I know I kind of folded it in, right? What I had to do was do the end from the beginning. I wanted to share. So you know what? I didn't load it up, and I've been wanting to do this for a minute. Just a shout out to our friends out there at Save a Child's Heart. I want to end it that way. And this is so much about Israel. And I didn't do it, but Save a Child's Heart, for those of you who don't know, is one of the many NGOs in Israel that does such tremendous work. And there was a little clip that they shared a little while ago. I don't think I shared this one. If I did, forgive me, but let me end it with this one too. Just I want you to see a little bit of their work. This is a young lady from the African nation. I don't remember which one it is right now, but she will say it. But check this out. So I want you to shout out to them. We love what they do. Hopefully we get to Israel this spring and go and visit Save a Child's Heart again. I want you to check out who they are.
In Israel has been a milestone and something that we've been looking forward for a long time. And it's like an answered prayer for us because this child was suffering very much. He couldn't attend classes regularly because of his sickness. So coming here and having surgery for him has been a very good thing. And I would want to thank Save the Child Heart Hospital for having a successful surgery. And I would want it to continue and save more children from this disease because a lot of children are suffering from this disease. Bukata recently had a surgery, and since then he has changed. After recovering, he's able to walk a long distance without getting tired. At least we have seen a lot of change, a big change about him. He's happy. We are all happy about him. When he grows up, he wants to become a surgeon so that he will experience doing the surgery for the hearts.
It is an amazing organization, and it's just one of so many. But I've been wanting to share that for a little while. Go to saveachildsheart.org. You can learn more. We took our IPSI ambassadors there back in June of 2023. Man, time just flies by. But just wanted to share about what they do. There's so many that are like that. It's funny. I guess it's fitting we end on that since we're talking about Africa. And let's contrast what the Israel haters are doing where Africa is concerned with where Israel is doing where Africa is concerned. All right. So, all right, ready? It's been great to be with you. I think I'm going to have to sign out here. I think that's it, but we're going to have to pick up on next week, on next Sunday. I want everyone to please have a great Thanksgiving holiday to celebrate. Looking forward to seeing you guys next week. Bye, everybody.
Choose the Power Live with Jimmy Study Washington.